Starting your first Airbnb does not need to break the bank. In fact, there's going to be key areas where you can save if you know what to look for. Let me walk you through the exact moves that I share with my clients to help them launch smart, not expensive. All right, so number one is going to be saving on your down payment. And this is where we can likely move the needle the largest for you. But if you use the right loan product, a vacation home loan can get you in for 10%. We've even got lenders who will go all the way down to 5% down in some cases. But that can tremendously impact your down payment, right? So for example, on a $400,000 property, let's say you get 10% down, that's $40,000. Compared to 20% down, that's going to be $80,000. So literally saving you $40,000 right off the bat just by having the proper lender connections. Secondly is going to be negotiating the closing cost. So especially in today's market, we are in a market where we can totally expect the sellers to pay the closing cost. But the key is to ask for them to pay everything. So be prepared and have a conversation with your lender saying, hey, how much exactly are my closing costs? What do I need to get from the seller in order to cover everything except for my down payment? And then make sure that you get that covered up front, right? Day one, we want to make our original offer for this because we want to end up getting the seller to pay all of the closing costs with the original offer. And then that's going to leave us with additional room for negotiation after the inspection. Because we'll talk about the inspection here shortly, but we also want to optimize that to minimize our cost out of pocket. All right, number three here is going to be buying furnished or lightly furnished. So if you really need to optimize your way into a property, or you might just stumble across the deal that's currently an Airbnb, you could go after something that is already furnished or comes with some furniture. And I wouldn't expect to be using it all, but if you can save the mattresses and the cups and the bowls and the plates and the silverware and the coffee maker and the patio furniture, all of that's going to add up. That might save you $10,000 to $20,000. Even if it's not perfect, you just ultimately use what you've got and then you can upgrade it as you go. This can certainly be a way to save money. I would say the most important thing with this, though, is just make sure you're really doing your homework and make sure that it is still a solid deal. Because a lot of the times when I see people selling Airbnbs, it's because of a specific reason. Maybe it's a problem property, or they're having regulations issues with the city, or they just bought a bad deal to begin with and the place doesn't cash flow. If you double check those three things and everything still checks out, I've bought in multiple properties that have come as Airbnbs and they've all worked out. All right, number four, a smart renovation strategy. So this here is going to really start during your inspection period. And what I like to do here is, let's say you get your inspection and you figure out you need, a furnace and there's some plumbing repairs and a roof leak that needs taken care of. Most of the time, the seller is going to say, hey, we'll get this fixed, right? And we'll fix it prior to closing. But what I've seen almost in every single case, the seller is just not going to prioritize quality work. They know that they're going to be offloading this property, so they're not going to go with the most quality contractor. They might even try to do it themselves. So what I like to do instead is I will ask for a escrow holdback. That way I can do the repairs the right way and get my own contractors for it. And the reason that it needs to be done as an escrow holdback is because remember, we already got the maximum credit towards our closing cost, and your lender is going to cap you at how much the seller can give to you at closing. So in the case of an escrow holdback, the seller is basically leaving the money with the title company out of their proceeds, and then the title company will cut the check directly to the contractor after their work is done. So this way you've got control over the quality and then who's doing the work. And then what I've seen in some cases here, and this isn't always kosher, but I have had, some people get, let's say, a credit for $10,000, but then let's say they find a general contractor that is willing to, let's say they shop that around and they find someone who's willing to do it for $6,000 or for $8,000. Well, they might have a surplus of $2,000 or $4,000 extra where maybe the contractor is able to refund that money to you, or maybe they can just apply that towards additional work that you were planning on doing. Like say painting accent walls is within your design. Well, maybe you could just get the contractor to throw in the accent walls because you were able to negotiate down on the roof, the furnace, and the plumbing there. So going about the renovation strategy, the smart way can ultimately save you a lot of money. Section number 5. So self-setup when you can. If you have the ability to fly out to the property and let's say you work remote or maybe you've got some extra travel points, go to the place. And I recommend getting there the day your packages start arriving, because you can probably be most efficient and helpful by sorting your boxes. Even if you have to hire some handyman to come in and help you put stuff together, if everything is already sorted, you just bring in 3 or 4 handyman, place them in one room each, you'd be surprised at how much you can knock out in a single day. All right. And then by doing that, you can also build local connections with those handyman, cleaner, and, other contacts on the ground. For instance, if I'm at a property and I'm overseeing the setup of my furniture, there's likely going to be one of those 3 or 4 guys that are going to stand out to me that I know works harder, understands just, basic stuff, better, and maybe is more presentable on how they carry themselves and their tools and their vehicle, to where when my property is done and I need a boots on the ground maintenance guy, I got a really good taste of, the guys that are out there, and I'll just cherry pick the best one and make them my maintenance guy long term. All right. So ultimately being out there, being a part of the setup process, assembling furniture or just managing, that can certainly set you up for savings there. Number 6 here. So shop Facebook Marketplace, when you can. This would be another benefit for being out at the property. But if you can get some of your maybe more expensive items off of Facebook Marketplace compared to the items that your designer picked out, this can save you money. Primarily what I'm looking for here is I found really good deals on its sectionals, dining room tables, patio furniture, and then like arcade games for my game rooms. Maybe that means pool tables, ping pong, or literal arcade machines. But all of those I found really good luck. They're frequent on Facebook Marketplace, and they're significantly cheaper than paying full price. A lot of the other stuff, we still want to go through the normal design process and get, good quality furniture that's being intentional about getting an ROI on it within our design, because that's what's, really important when it comes to actually doing the numbers that are in your deal analyzer. But ultimately saving on the big expensive stuff that's frequent in almost every major market, that will save you money. And then just being intentional about where you spend. We do need good mattresses and a good couch and a quality dining room table if you're hosting, a large Airbnb. But I'm totally fine with going budget on some of the decor. This is especially, common for the artwork, the curtains, the throw pillows, the board games. You could spend $1,000 on, board games and, high-end chessboards and checkers and, cornhole, all of that. I'm certainly buying, the budget models for all that because, again, it's more about having those items as opposed to how high quality are these items. All right. And then lastly, automate early, but, take advantage of the free tools that are out there. So no need to overspend on, property management softwares. I would certainly start with Price Labs. They do have a free trial. I would also spend money on automating your locks, which is going to automate your check-in process. But like guest messaging templates and automated messages, you can upload directly into Airbnb, and you don't need an extra software for that. And then once you start making money and spending maybe a little bit more time in the business, you can then upgrade your systems once you've learned on how everything works, set it up properly, and then maybe step back a little bit or gain some more of your time back. Maybe you're focusing on deal number 2, or, spending a little bit more time with your friends and family there. So if you're looking to launch your first Airbnb and you're trying to save as much money as you can throughout that process, I hope this list is helpful to you. I do really think that this can easily save someone tens of thousands of dollars and get the same quality product when it's done right. And if you want help launching your first Airbnb the smart way and implementing all of these savings, but also making sure you're doing a really good deal to begin with, I'd invite you to book a free deal planning call below. We'll connect with you, go over your goals, and then if we think we can help you, we'll explain to you exactly what it would look like to team up together on your first property. So if that's something you're looking for help with, just click on the link below, book that free deal planning call, and we look forward to connecting with you.